Good morning. I'm Gary Forsberg, Central Christian College of the Bible, doing a sermon for Preaching Artfully. Today, I want to talk to you about faith. I was thinking a fond memory of when I was raising my kids, and I have three. The first time I bring them to the pool, the first time they jump into the pool on their own, but since they can't swim, they have to rely on me 100%. Now, one of my kids was hesitant. She couldn't trust on me like 100%. She trusts in me that I'm there, but doesn't quite not trust. She trusts herself. So she's hanging on to the edge and she's trying to climb on and, never let go of the side of the pool until she had firmly grasped of me. Then we got the other one. We all know that type of kid, the one that has apparently no fear whatsoever, totally reliant on me to catch her, and she dives in the pool with a big cannonball in the opposite direction. And I had to panic to go save her, but I wasn't going to let her fall. Now, my third one, we're not going to really talk about because I had to just throw him in the pool, and he's useful in Jonah. But I want to talk specifically about that kind of faith, the kind that causes you to have a total reliance on the Father, right? And this total reliance, you know it in your heart. There's no way 100% you are following Christ. And this example was given to us in Peter. So we're going to go back and take a look at a pivotal moment in Peter's journey that brings us up to this thing, that explains his journey, right? So early in a little background, early in Jesus's Galilean ministry, following visiting with Nicodemus and following the arrest of John the Baptist. So he's a little bit into it. He's already started to call disciples to follow him, and they are. And now he's returned up to Capernaum near the Sea of Galilee. So let's go with me and read in your Bibles Matthew chapter 4, verses 18 through 20. While Peter was walking by the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And he said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." Immediately they left their nets and followed him. Just want you to let you know that this wasn't a random thing, right? So Jesus knew and saw two people that in the boat, right? He went up to them, and they were professional fishermen, right? So they're in the middle of their workday, and he was comfortable enough to go up and interrupt them. And I know he's God and all, but there's a purpose behind it. When Jesus told them, "Follow me," they dropped immediately. Like there was no hesitation in whatsoever in their actions. It means the same thing then as now. It's immediate, is right now, no hesitation whatsoever. So at this pivotal moment in Peter's life, you're working imagine you're at work, you're working this, not a side job, your professional job, and you're behind in the back, and all of a sudden this guy comes in, fairly famous guy, Dr. Stevens from Central Christian College of the Bible. He has authority because he controls people's grades like mine, and he recognizes me, right? So he comes in behind the counter, the authorized people only thing. He walks in, makes eye contact with me, and says, "You need to follow me now." And he starts going. And I have a very quick decision I have to make. It's either I stay here and work what I'm comfortable with and I'm making my livelihood, or go to something that's possibly better, a better path, a bigger thing, right? So would I reorient my entire life around that thing, giving up everything else, casting that all onto as secondary actions? So Peter made a choice, and he chose to follow Jesus. He reoriented his entire life around one person, right? God the Father and his Son. That is the central moment in his life. He went from believing in Jesus because Jesus had a name by now, and Peter knew him. But he made this choice right there. He's the center of life, and he's going to change directions, and off he goes. He believes on him in his heart this is a pivotal moment. So Peter, knowing that Peter becomes the example of our faith and foundational to the foundations of our church, his beliefs, how is Peter unique than you or I? So to do this, we have to take a journey back in time just a little bit, a few months or a year. And we want to look at when Peter first met Jesus. And we want to follow Peter on his faith journey all the way to the point where he became an apostle. So let's start at the beginning, back in John 1, verses 40 to 43. One of the two who heard John speak followed Jesus was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. He first found his own brother Simon and said to him, "We have found the Messiah," which means Christ. He brought him to Jesus. Jesus looked at him and said, "You are Simon, son of John. You shall be called Cephas," which means Peter. So a little bit of background on this. This wasn't up in Capernaum in Galilee. This is down beyond the Jordan. He was in Judah. This is the very start of Jesus' ministry when he just came out of the wilderness. And John the Baptist was baptizing people. Well, one of John's followers was Andrew, Peter's brother. Can you imagine? So let's go step back in time. And, who's heard the movie Galaxy Quest, right? Very funny movie. So let's say you go to Comic-Con, just like in the movie, right? And you see, Captain Nesmith, who's, leading the NSEA Protector. And then all of a sudden you find out, oh, you get to meet them, right? These are like your heroes because you idolize them like the kid does in the movie. But then you realize it's real. This is a real mission. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. I got to go do something, right? You're really excited about something. And Andrew was too. He's going to go tell his brother, who is his friend, and he's in the area. So off he goes to go find Peter, or, at this time, Simon, right? And he's going to find him to bring him to go meet Jesus. And once he meets him, then he goes up and at first introduction, they shake hands, whatever they do to introduce, and it becomes personal. There's a moment between Jesus and Simon. And Jesus lets Peter know exactly who he is and who his dad is. And then he tells him right there, "You shall be called Peter," which means kind of like a rock. To you and me, that's not like a normal name, right? So, and I'm sure Andrew was kind of taken back on it. He spent all day, this is his good news, and all of a sudden your brother gets the cool name, the Rock. So we go back and what's in that name, right? There's something more to this. It isn't a general nickname like Scooter or Hoss when you just meet somebody and he's trying to act cool. This is more like a military call sign. We've seen these in movies. You got Maverick and Goose and all that, but these are personal names. My name, I got my name when I was on a special mission in Iraq. I had to go to all these different bases across 3 different countries with my boss. And we had to go do some training and a bunch of other stuff. But we travel on helicopters and different transports. We spend a long time doing all this. And some of these nights were in pretty austere living environments. And we were under fire. So you'd hear mortars coming in. So we were sleeping sometimes we were sleeping in our body armor and our helmets. And the only thing really protecting us was that tent. And so my boss and I bonded over time. And we got to know each other real well. He got to see me in stress. He got to see how I handled action and adversity, and is also how I dealt with other people while I was along the way. When I got back home, everything seemed to be nice and relaxed, and all of a sudden I get called into an office. I get in there, and the entire unit's there, and I see our unit organizational charts with everybody's name on it, right? So but it's all their call signs, like it's Flash and Jedi and all this other stuff, and Raisin over here. And then they get down, there's one that says Buzzsaw, and I go, who's that guy? Well, the commander of the unit says, we have somebody new here. I want to introduce everybody to Buzzsaw. And that was really cool. That's when I was given my name. And for the last 25 years, if I hear the name Buzz or Buzzsaw, I turn around, I know it's somebody from the military I know. But they know me real well. Now, there's a trick to call signs, and this is where it becomes personal. A call sign is given, when it's given out of love, there's a compliment in it, and there's also an inside joke. The inside joke for me is I snore really loud. So my name sounds cool, but it's really kind of a joke. And to everybody else, unless you know me, that's what they wanted to present to everybody else. Now, it's not as personal as being called Peter by Jesus, but it shows that there's a personal connection. There's more to the names. And so we find out that from the beginning, when they get to that pivotal point, Jesus knew Peter. Their relationship was personal, and Jesus planted a seed of who Peter is going to end up being. So this leads us back to that pivotal point. So we go from beyond the Jordan. Now we're going to go back up to Capernaum on the Sea of Galilee, and we're going to revisit that point with a little bit more detail in it to see how much we might have missed from Matthew's account, which seems to be highlight reel. So we'll turn to Luke 5, verses 1 through 11. On one occasion, while the crowd was pressing in on him to hear the word of God, he was standing by the lake Gennesaret when he saw two boats by the lake. But the fishermen had gone out of them and were washing their nets. Getting into one of the boats, which was Simon's, he asked him to put out a little from land, and he sat down and taught people from the boat. So we find out, unlike Matthew, there's a little bit more detail. Jesus wasn't just taking a stroll along the lake. He was with a whole crowd of people. Well, they were starting to push up on him. And Jesus didn't pick out just random boats. He saw one of his disciples, who was Andrew, and Peter, who he had a personal connection with, along with the other boat, which was the whole company, and he went up to them and was going to now have them help him. And they recognized that immediately and allowed him to get in the boat because, it's their place of work. But this personal connection, Jesus, you are welcome in my boat. That's kind of what Peter was doing. It was helping him out a bit. And by doing that, he complied and he backed the boat away from the shore so all these people can't press up on him. And Jesus started talking. But then we move on to verse 4. Verse 4 says, and when he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, put out into the deep and let down your nets for a catch. And Simon answered, Master, we toiled all night and took nothing. But at your word, I will let down the nets. And when they had done this, they enclosed a large number of fish, and their nets were breaking. They signaled to their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and filled the boats so that they began to sink. So you can see Jesus was finished teaching the crowd, but now he's going to return some favor to Peter for his time. But he's also going to teach and maybe reveal something to him. So he told Peter to put out the boat. Peter complied. The personal relationship between, a teacher and a student like Peter had was that he was comfortable enough to argue back and reason back with Jesus. But Jesus had something up his sleeve he was going to reveal to Peter, not just that he's the Messiah, academically in his head. He's going to prove it to Peter right now. And so as soon as he lets out the net, he complied with it. And all of a sudden, all these fish come on. And we filled both boats and they both began to sink. This can only happen with the help of God. So let's go on to verse 8. So in verse 8, it starts out, but when Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, Depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord. For he and all who were with him were astonished at the catch of the fish that they had taken. And so also were James and John, sons of Zebedee, who were partners of Simon's. And Jesus said to Simon, Do not be afraid, but from now on you will be catching men. And when they had brought their boats to land, they left everything and followed him. This is remarkable. This is that pivotal moment. So a little bit more than what Matthew talks about. This is between when they were putting their nets away for the rest of the day and after they let down their nets to start fishing again, right? So the light bulb kind of goes on in Peter's eyes on who Jesus is. He's been told he's the Messiah. He believes it, but he's kind of like my first kid that just doesn't quite want to jump on board. So all of a sudden, the lights are on. Jesus is the living son of the son of the living God, of our living God, right? So, and even to confirm some of this, Peter submits to him and calls him, "Oh Lord," but then Jesus comes back. Do not be afraid. You know that common phrase that's only used by God and angels when during like life-altering or overwhelming life events. This is one of those for Peter. Peter took God in at that moment and believed in his heart. And if you notice, he didn't say, "Follow me." He told them, "You will become a catcher. You will catch men." And when he does that, he's kind of voluntelling him to do it. He's been voluntold, is the way we call it in the military. So now he's going to willfully do this. He's doing it urgently, like right now. They're going to drop, but it wasn't just him. It was the whole company. This was a pretty miraculous event. So my question that we said earlier, is this normal to react like this? Well, to put it in perspective, we all get a phone call. We have our busy lives, and there's always something in the schedule. We can't make time for anything, when your dad calls or anything like that. Well, I'll try to get down there, and you guys are so much, I love you. But then you get a call, and it's a real emergency. Something happens. And at that moment, your priorities in your life on who's important and what's important gets highlighted. Your schedule's clear. You will obviously have all the time in the world right now to take care of that person, right? And you reorient your entire life around fixing that and making sure that they're taken care of. So it's not uncommon to reorient your whole life and focus it around one person as the highest priority. And all Peter did is know that Jesus is now the center of his life. Everything else is secondary. So Peter has gone from belief in Jesus as the Messiah to belief on Jesus as the Messiah, has made him number one and is urgently following him as he was called. So let's read later into Matthew 16, verses 13 through 19, when Jesus lets us know that this is the example, right? Now, in verse 13, now when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do you say the Son of Man is?" They said, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets." He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter replied, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you bind on earth shall be loosed in heaven." So the first thing we saw is Jesus asked who they say is. It's the rumors, it's what they've been hearing. So are they learning? Are they paying attention to their environment? But when Jesus asked his disciples, "Who do you say I am?" it was Simon who first spoke up. Simon boldly professed that he is the Christ, the Son of the living God. Jesus immediately blesses Peter at that thing, at that specific moment in time, on the fact that only the Father will reveal that to him. It's not by flesh and blood like other people and words and deeds and things you witness, right? It's only the Father's will that you know that he is the Christ and the Son of the living God. So at that moment, Peter showed that he had the confidence to boldly speak it. He was the first one to say this out loud publicly. The other disciples may have believed it in their hearts, but it was Peter that had the confidence and the boldness to speak it. And Jesus confirmed that this is the right decision by declaring Peter right there that declaration is the foundation of his church. So when we followed Peter on his journey, you'll see that he went from a belief in to a belief on deep in his heart. But he also urgently followed Jesus at all points along his journey. His journey was kind of just starting at his confession of who Jesus was. He went on for a long time after that, right? He was being taught. Became a leader. So our lives changed quite a bit when we follow Jesus. But putting Jesus first and urgently following him is the example he set, and Jesus confirmed that. In closing, we are all different points along our journey. Some are at the start and some are much farther down the road. Many of us has had a lot of course corrections along the way. Every person in their life has its center, their position is centered around a single highest priority. I want you to examine what's at the center of your life. Who's at the center of your life? Is that person Jesus? I promise you this, if you put Jesus as the center, your highest priority in your life, and orient everything around towards following him urgently, you will be transformed. When you put Jesus at the center and urgently follow him with boldness, you will experience a radical transformation in your life. Jesus wants us to be the child who does the cannonball into the pool. Urgently follow him.